Tucker Carlson is in town for the RNC. He's going to be speaking on Thursday, which is the same night that Trump himself is speaking. And Tucker went out on a limb and predicted the events of this past weekend about a year ago. And here he is now giving his take on the fallout.
Of this election, I mean, let's be honest, Trump just won. He won. Not only did he survive an assassination attempt, he stood up without knowing whether there were other shooters there. He stood up and faced the crowd and raised his hand and said, "Fight, fight, fight." That's it. You do that, you win. And by the way, I happen to notice that the crowd, which also didn't know whether there were other shooters, who watched Trump get shot in the face, they did not bolt. It wasn't like a fire in a theater, actually. They sat there, they watched him intently, and when he stood up, they applauded him, and many cried. Why is that? Because a brave leader gives his people heart. That's why. That's exactly why.
You know, it's true. And, you know, I've always been so generally averse to Trump's politics on most issues. Not on all of them, obviously, but on most of them. And I've always seen him as so sort of intellectually lazy and so sort of uncommitted to even his most, you know, serious promises of the 2016 campaign, even the ones I didn't particularly give a shit about, like the wall, right? The fact that he kind of really half-assed it on the wall, I never thought of him as a particularly serious political person. I always thought of him as just the embodiment of a certain ego and a certain id. And there was a certain blankness about him that was very useful in terms of people projecting onto him what they wanted to see. And I still believe that to a certain extent. But this last bit here.
And many cried. Why is that? Because a brave leader gives his people heart. That's why. That's exactly why.
Like that is, for whatever he is, that is true. I mean, when you look at what has been thrown at this fucking guy, who was shitting in his gold toilet, banging supermodels until he decided to do this. And you look at just what he has endured. It is remarkable, the stamina on this guy. And he is a warrior in that sense. And so whatever he represents to people, and there are people, I mean, he has a cult-like following. I've seen it in person. You've seen it in person. We've both covered Trump rallies. We've both been aware in this space of the political dynamic. You know, if that's your thing, man, like, imagine Bernie Sanders going through all this shit for his movement. Imagine any other politician. Imagine any of these fucking mediocre politicians running this kind of gauntlet for their movement. Whether you like the movement or don't like the movement, imagine another person doing this. Getting fucking prosecuted, getting fucking shot in the ear, the scrutiny that you've endured. You know, I mean, it's just like the union guy said. One tough SOB. That alone, I think, inspires people. That is that rallies people. The fact that this guy and the January 6th, like, look at how many times they tried to just shut him down and shut him out. You know, 20 years ago, a thing like January 6th happens and you're on the hook for it, not just like politically, but there are moves made to make you legally on the hook for it. That's it. You don't rebound from that. That would scare 99 out of 100 politicians away from public life. They'd be like, all right, they sent me their signal, time to retire and, go be a lobbyist somewhere.
So, yeah.
Who gets right back in the ring?
Look at Andrew Cuomo.
Exactly. Exactly.
Once they got him out, all the bribery, all the money he took from the hospital lobbies, all the old people who died from COVID because of the money he took and that impacted his policies. That all went away. They were investigating it. They were looking into it.
Yeah, that's a great point. If that goes away, he's a retired man. He goes on Bill Maher every once in a while, and that's it. Who would, after a thing like that, throw their hat right back in the ring, face down indictment after indictment, charge after charge, an assassination attempt? I mean, there's a tenacity about him that does have a certain appeal, I must admit.
Sure.
Makes me jealous. If only someone did this to get us health care. If only someone fought like this for health care. so that we didn't have to fight with insurance companies to get medicine.
Well, a lot of people have said this for a long time, and it's true. They pay Democrats to be weak.
Right.
They pay Democrats to fail. Those are the Democrats they support. They support weak Democrats, and this is, I go back and forth sometimes with our communist friends, but it's with love because, hey, one thing they say that I cannot argue with, they're the only ones who ever beat their capitalist class. That is true. Now, I have some disagreements about what the upshot of that is the day after, but when you look at some of the leaders that the left produced in the past, being weak, being feckless, being, frankly, effeminate, it is not inherent to leftism. It is inherent to the kind of leftism that I believe at this point has been carefully constructed since the 70s to be exactly what it is today. Weak, compromised, identity obsessed, and no threat to power. Now, the mistake I would argue they may have made strategically is pumping up strong Republicans. They never really thought about what might happen if the movement turned against their interests. So supporting all of the workers and putting them into the pro-corporate party. Okay, well, now you got a bunch of sons of bitches tough enough not to flee when shots are being fired at the president right in front of them. Now you got them turning against you. You might not like how that turns out.
But that's the thing. I mean, and that's a good point, but like that wasn't really cultivated by the Republican Party either. Like this is unique to Trump. I mean, that's what Tucker's saying. Like this is a level of fucking fighting spirit that
he
like,
had
you
those
do not
he had
see.
those people to work off of, because I mean that's what Frank's whole book was about how all of these were, what's the matter with Kansas? These working class people had been going to the Republican Party for decades.
Sure.
And then Trump went up and actually said, oh yeah, these trade deals, they're terrible.
Well, that's what I mean.
We should tear them up. But they were already there in the Republican Party for him to build off of.
He cultivated that. Mitt Romney, Paul Ryan didn't cultivate that. They didn't really care if they had him or not.
Well, they were just bringing those people in on culture.
Right.
And exactly. Trump was the first one who came in and actually started talking about their economic interests. Right. But hey, man, when I see something like that, I said this when I went and covered Trump's Bronx rally. Elections are won and lost on morale. Those people are fucking into it. Who's into Joe Biden? Yeah. Who's into Joe Biden? Yeah. These people who are, into Joe Biden, they're not into Joe Biden. They're neurotic people with no personality who use politics as a means of signaling some kind of depth that they don't actually have. They just very superficially repeat the party line as a way of getting people to pay attention to them. That is my experience of the kinds of people who are passionate Democrats at this point. They're very shallow, uninteresting people who, if they were not repeating the craziest shit Rachel Maddow said last night, they wouldn't have anything at all to say.
Yeah. Well said.
Please clap.